Thank you, Adam. Yes, welcome. We are going to talk about critical infrastructures today, and as the title said, it's not all about power. So the idea was not to talk about blackouts too much. We are going to talk about public transportation or transportation and logistics today, and not the usual energy sector. Who of you has already worked with critical infrastructure or knows about it? Yeah. Who has used critical infrastructure? Should be everyone. Okay. What are we talking about? It starts with the basics. I talked about energy already, and the other topics are obviously food and water, which are very important to us. And then there are several other topics or areas like healthcare, and in fact, finance. Yes, money is important. So we are talking about all of these, but specifically about transportation. And I'm very happy to have a couple of people who know about this stuff. So I have Martin from the BSI, the Bundesamt für Sicherheits- und Informationstechnik. We have Ion, who is from the AG Kritis, a group of hackers that, well, you can talk about that yourself, that think about critical infrastructure. And we have Andreas, who's from a transportations company. And maybe you can quickly introduce yourself and we'll start here.
Okay, sure. My name is Andreas Bogk. I've been doing a lot of security work in the past and eventually ended up in governance. So I'm currently the group CISO for Stadler, not very well known, but pretty big manufacturer of railway infrastructure, mostly trains, also trackside infrastructure. If you've driven around in the U-Bahn or S-Bahn in Berlin, it's probably has been one of our trains. So one of the big manufacturers, and yeah, pretty happy to have went from breaking things into building secure things.
So yeah, so I'll continue. Welcome to the show, so to say. And yeah, my name is Martin Apel. I'm working for the BSI, the Federal Office for Information Security of Germany, and I'm working in the field of critical infrastructure protection. There are multiple units concerned with that topic, and I'm working with a so-called Grundsatzreferat, which is looks at all the sectors and it's not very sector specific, but everything that's above sector specific, so to say. These are my topics. But I've been in sectors before. I've led the unit that is concerned with electricity and water. Now it's Grundsatz. So yeah.
Hello, my name is Ion, and I am spokesperson for the AG Kritis working group on critical infrastructures is our name, and we founded ourselves in 2018 after we came together and decided that we've all seen the same pains and that we've all been trying to improve things from the inside for the last decade and discussing IT security and ICS security without a measurable outcome. So we decided to become lobbyists and change things from the civil side of society and lobby for better supply security of critical infrastructures and better standards and IT security in this field. And for this group, I have the honor of speaking today. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes. So thank you for your introductions. Why are we talking about transportation? What can go wrong in transportation? When we look at the past years, several things have gone wrong in my point of view. So at the end of the last year in autumn, those of you who are living in northern Germany have probably noticed this. The German train system failed, or basically the GSM network that is part of the Deutsche Bahn network failed, and the whole of northern Germany was not able to have running trains for, I think, almost a day. Yeah. So that was one of the larger failures we had last year. Earlier in the year, some other parts failed where the ticketing systems in Hescher were not working. So that was actually a ransomware attack on a supply chain, basically a company that runs or develops the software for the ticket sales systems was attacked, and nobody could get tickets. That was round about the time that the very cheap ticket was introduced, the 9 € ticket, and basically got lost there in the news. Then we had another interesting thing happening earlier in 21. The BVG, the local transportation company, they decided they are not critical infrastructure because it's not critical to get from A to B in Berlin, and who needs them? And basically they lost a lawsuit where they tried to prove that they are not critical, and maybe we can talk about who is critical or what is critical. And finally, the large elephant in the room we all know about is Maersk. That is ages ago, 2017, I think. We had the NotPetya attacks, basically an attack from Russia on the Ukraine, and large parts of Maersk could not work. All their systems were wiped. When we prepared for this, I was told similar attacks, wiper attacks, happened again when the Ukraine war started a year ago. And it's another hot topic where transplantation is involved, and there are a lot of things that have to be done, and maybe we can talk about what the biggest challenges are. Maybe we start with you again. Where do you see the biggest challenges for transportation and security?
Yes, so when I started that job, I was thinking, yeah, that's going to be nice and easy. I mean, who's attacking trains, right? And turned out to be not quite the case. We've heard about the Viper attack on the Ukrainian infrastructure. There was a similar attack by the cyber partisans in Belarus who sabotaged the not the critical systems where people could die. They were very careful to just sabotage the management system for the trains, for the schedule. And so the Russian troops couldn't be transported. So suddenly you find yourself not only protecting against, indiscriminate attacks like ransomware, right? They don't care whom they attack. All they care about is that they pay money. Fine. But we're also starting to see directed attacks. Someone wants to attack transport infrastructure to damage critical infrastructure. So it's become more interesting. And there are other factors that make it harder. So when I started the job, the first thing I did was, walk around. The engineers explained to me how the train works, and I said, what is if this component goes down? What is if that component takes over? And they explained to me, you see, on the train, we have a pneumatic line. We have a hose with pressurized air running through the whole train, and there are brakes with big springs. And if they lose the air pressure, the springs will compress the brakes, and the train will stop. And there's someone sitting in front of the train, and they have that big button. And on the big button, there is a huge nail, and that nail punctures the hose. And if he smashes down the button, the train will stop no matter what the electronic does. So that was very comforting to me. And then I learned an interesting phrase, and that is automatic train operation. Right? They want to get rid of that person in front. And I think that's one of the big challenges. The threat model changes. Threat model changes from there's a guy who can stop the train in case of an emergency to no, we need to make sure that system is secure because otherwise bad things can happen. And I think the next problem is one we see across all the industries that deal with ICS infrastructure. And that is that those people have a mindset that, ICS, this is not computers. Right? So now I don't need to patch that. It's an ICS system. It's not Windows. You do have to patch it. Yes. And so this needs to sink in. People need to understand it. And the other big challenge we have in that industry is also that safety they've been doing for 125 years. They've all worked with that when they started in the company 30, 40 years ago. Security is new. And also, it costs money, right? And we're only building what the customer pays us for. So one of the challenges we still see, and this is fortunately changing, is that in a lot of points, if the customer doesn't order security, they don't get security, right? And so with the new laws we're seeing, it's in Europe, the NIS2 directive, in Switzerland, it's more specialized laws that refer to that, but that work similarly. There's pressure being put on the railway operators, who are our customers, to operate their trains securely. And then the always popular topic of supply chain security comes in. So all the big railway operators come to us and say, "Hey, we need security patches for your trains." And this is good because we then go and say, "No, that costs money," and they say, "We have to give you the money because law makes us do that, right?" And so we actually can start implementing security. And there we get into another very special problem, especially of the transportation industry, but other critical infrastructures are the same, is the very long lifetime. So if you build a train, it has a lifetime of 30 to 40 years. Try to think back what systems were current 30 years ago, right? You might have already be running Windows 3.11 or Windows 95. Right. And so if you go to our suppliers and say, our customer wants security patches for the trains for the next 30 years from us, can you give us security patches for the switches we use, for the ICS systems we use? They say, well, usually 5 years. If you pay extra money, it's 10. So all the obsolescence management is a huge challenge for us as well.
Yeah, I continue. First on, I have to underline this. It's so important and it's so widespread, these effects. And we, in critical infrastructure, they see themselves often as engineers, and they are engineers. They are doing what they can do best. They make things work. And they do think about safety, as you mentioned. But what they usually don't is they don't think so much about security, and especially not about IT security. And they have the system and they know it works, and they probably have programmed it themselves, and they know it's working. It's fine, and don't touch it. Don't ever think about touching it. And well, that's good in one sense. I mean, it's good that they know their systems and they are very close to them. But it's really a problem when digitalization comes in, and that is coming. You can't stop that. And more standards PCs are placed where former ICS components were, and there's more connectivity required, and all that massively increases the attack surface. And they don't know this. They don't see this because it was their special hardware before. Now it's a PC. Well, it's easier for them. It's nice, but they don't see the problems involved with this. And that's, I've a lot of respect for this job, to make engineers think about security and IT security. And it's really important. A month ago or 2 months ago, I spoke with laboratories about which system have to be secured. And they told me that, well, this in vitro diagnostica, so the systems that actually do the tests for them, because there's not any doctor who really does a test, but they have thousands of tests lined, and they go in this line, and the system makes all the tests automatically. And they said, well, we don't think that's IT, so we don't have to do anything there. It's not part of the whole security thing. Well, that's hard. That's hard in these days, because I don't think everybody in this, not everybody from these people really thinks that, but some do, and that's a real problem. And that's why it's so important that we do the work that we do and tell them, no, you have to do this. It's at some point you have to.
So, we have heard there's regulations, and you're saying it's hard to tell people that they have to do something. We have had these regulations. The IT Sicherheitsgesetz has been out for 2 years, roundabout. Have you seen improvement? Has it helped?
So I thought, it has helped. It has helped a lot. There are regular audits that people have to do, or that these companies have to do, and we get the results. We at BSI get the results. And you can really see it in the numbers. At the start, it was 10,000 of problems within all the companies. And now this number is decreasing steadily. But it takes time to make it decrease, and it needs supervision. We have to watch this. So we at BSI, we can not only say, okay, you've made your audit, okay, fine. You'll improve, right? So that's not enough. So meanwhile, we're talking every half a year with them and tell them, okay, we want a new list. We want to see how you've improved. What have you done? And if, these lists are not, they don't develop in the way that we expect, then, we'll have to make them pay some money. So we just have to make them do it, so to say. And that's important, and it really helps. But are we where we have to be? No, we are not. So there's too much problem still. And also IT security is not a state. Yeah, it's a process. And you have to do it the whole time again and again and again, because there will be new problems, there will be new technologies, and you will have to fix those. Not the technologies, but the problems. So, yeah.
Definitely. The first IT security law in Germany for the critical entities was introduced in 2016 and was revised in 2019 with the second version of it. Just for the international guests here that may not be aware of the fine details here. What I find interesting here is that it basically requires a proper ISO 27001 certification, but you cannot accept risks from the management side. Management can't say, that risk we can oversee and accept, that's fine. You do not have that option. So instead of accepting a risk, you have to get a so-called Mängelbericht, and that Mängelbericht will then be processed by his employer, and they'll probably fine you if you do not improve the security in the long term. So the next audit is in 2 years, I think, every 2 years, depending on the fine details. But every 2 years you will have to show that you've actually removed the problems that were found last time. And that does work. But the thing is that the law in question here isn't written by the security office, but instead by the Ministry of the Interior. And they are not even taking the advice of their own office for FOIT security. When you take a look at what his employer recommended to the Ministry of Interior to change in 2019, then less than half of these recommendations were put in. And I am very sure that 0% of the civil society's input to these laws have been, even acknowledged, not even a receipt acknowledgement, but by the Ministry of the Interior, and we see the problem in that, because the expert knowledge that we have in Europe about this topic does not reach the legislative stage, and I think that's where we have the most work to do, and that then touches the topics outlined by Andreas and Martin earlier on, that there is a lot of open to-dos that are just pushed further down the line. And from the legislative perspective, we are now seeing the NIS2 directive coming in that will force us to change our structure in the law there. But we are also seeing the CRE directive, the critical entity, the directive on critical resilience of entities. I think the words are, yes, that one. Exactly. The name was changed like 3 times in the last couple of years, but that one, it isn't even been thought about so far by the Ministry of the Interior. They are only speaking about NIS2, but NIS2 in regards to critical entities is meaningless without taking a look at the CER Directive 2.
Yeah, thank you. So we've seen there are laws, there will be new laws, there will be changes. Now, we have got quite a few technical people in the room, I assume. Do you have any suggestions on how the community can help? I mean, Ion, you're doing something, you're raising awareness and trying to do things on the political stage. Are there any things that can be done by everyone?
Yes, definitely. I think it sounds dumb, sorry to use this phrase, but raise awareness in the legal and political circles about these topics, which means dumb it down. Write texts that are super dumb for politicians that understand what the issue is. And especially what I think is most important is bug bounty programs. We need to request bug bounty programs from the government and we need to make sure that that we change the law in such a way that none of us go into any legal or juridical danger when doing white hat research. And the legal framework in Germany isn't developed as such that white hat research is actually legal and risk-free. Everybody that does any kind of white hat research is in most cases in grave danger of many years of prison. I mean, unless you speak about the anonymous friend that showed you something but that's bullshit. We know all about that. That can't be it. I think that's the most important thing, because if we push through on these legal security topics, then a lot of other things will fall in place. For example, the independence of the Federal Office for IT Security is an important topic, because we can't achieve good good protection of researchers unless the Office for IT Security, the Federal Office, actually works outside of the control of our security services and Nachrichtendienst and the spy agencies of Germany. Like, that has to be separated very well. Otherwise, findings from white hats might be used by the government-employed black hats, and that cannot be the outcome anybody wishes for.
So one topic I'd like to pick up on is the topic of bug bounties, because I tried thinking about how to implement that, and it's a bit tricky with critical infrastructure, right? So if you have a website that millions of people are using, it's easy to say, yeah, go ahead. You know, there's the website, play with that. If you find a bug, put it there. We give you money. Done. I couldn't, with good conscience, tell you to just go out and hack a train, because I know what happens when you start an nmap on it, right? And if it's on the track. So, that's not good. So that might be something to think about and consider, how to transport the bug bounty program into an environment where you have, really critical stuff that can't possibly crash, and where you can't just give people random access and give the first one to hack a bug bounty. So not sure how that's supposed to work.
Well, I also think, you're also, I think you do have a lot of technical knowledge, and you're surely active in this field. And what I would like you to do is that whenever you discover a bug, might it be legal or in any other way, I don't care. But if you discover a bug, so don't keep it to yourself. Don't make somebody pay a huge sum, not some spy agency at least. If anybody and the bug bounty pays you money, great, but don't keep it back. But publish it in a responsible way, so that it can be closed. Because every bug that's out there is a problem. It's a potential problem, or we don't know. There are states that are sponsoring people or paying people to search for bugs. I'm pretty sure you're probably not the first one that have found it, but you might be the first one that publishes it. And that would be great, because that makes the bug disappear. And that's really great. And, whenever you are concerned with critical infrastructures, or you're working on them, be responsible. So if you find a bug that you can make a train stop, or probably you can make a train not stop, don't do it. Think about
or at least try not to stop all of the trains at the same time.
Talk to him about it.
It's very interesting, because if you look at the security aspects of trains only through the safety lens, right? Safety people will tell you a train that stops is a safe state. Security people tell you if all the trains stop at the same time, we have a major issue.
Yeah, then we have a breakdown of the critical infrastructure. Basically.
Exactly.
So that's, probably no one will die, but
even that is not a given, because if one train stops in the middle of winter, we have capacity to get all the people out of the train. If all trains stop at the same time in the middle of winter and heating stops, we have a problem. Yeah, people might die.
So be responsible and be active. And another thing I would wish for is that people don't focus so much on incident response, but focus more on the a bit boring topic of do it right in the first place. So try to fix problems that you know about. And yeah, the background I'm coming from is that I have a lot of critical infrastructures operators that have a long list of things they know they have to improve on. And yeah, just do that. And whenever you probably work in such a company also, make the management give you money to do it. If they don't, come to us. We might be able to help you with that. And so incident response is important. Yeah, you can't say I'm not responding to incidents because there will be none. That's not gonna happen too. There will be incidents, but try to fix them beforehand.
Do you have a whistleblower protection program?
The question was, do we have a whistleblower protection program in this country? No, not really. Not really. A little bit. Some first steps have been taken, but it has been pulled through. I would like to react to the incident response topic because that is the founding story of my work group there. Basically, the consensus that evolved in this loose group in 2018 was we've been trying to preach, to fix things, to improve the things, to close the vulnerabilities since a decade. It hasn't been done sufficiently. So now we need to think about what happens if shit hits the fan. And we do need to have a governmentally supported proper incident response group for the critical infrastructures. We don't have that right now. We have companies that offer incident response. We have teams inside the operators that do that, but they are all only able to cover limited scenarios of one company or one building, or not scenarios where infrastructures break down in a large scale or over a large area. So we do have the so-called Technisches Hilfswerk in Germany, the THW, which was founded in 1950, so way before computers became a thing. And they've been doing technical assistance in complex, let me put it broadly, engineering scenarios in general, but they haven't made the adaptation to IT, computers, or cyber in any way, shape, or form in the last 20 years. So we are advocating that we as a society need to build such a structure that allows all of the community of researchers to organize in a volunteer way inside these groups with the necessary protection from prosecution, so that we are organized before shit happens, and then we can respond in force with thousands of proper IT security professionals to help out to get things back up and running, because that's the time frame that we need to decrease. If shit hits the fan, how long does it take until stuff works again and citizens are supplied with basic infrastructure again? That time frame needs to be decreased. There's a question over there. So we call this Cyber Hilfswerk concept. It's on our website, and yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Are you aware if the CRA, the Cyber Resilience Act, applies to what we're discussing here? Because if it does, my understanding, I'm still very early in reading about this, but I understand that there will be protections for researchers and so on and so forth. So everything that you're discussing, it seems to me that would be provided for. However, my understanding is also that the CRA does not apply when there are other standards in place. And so I'm wondering if it applies here.
I'm not a lawyer on this, and first of all, the German implementation of the directive is still not finished. What I can say so far is that at least the responsible ministry isn't combining the two. When I've been reading up on the NIS2 directive and the CRA directive in the past, I had the understanding that these two things need to be read and understood together to be able to achieve their goals. What I see currently in the political field is that they're only talking about the NIS2 and forgetting that they also need to combine that with the upcoming directive of the CRA. So yes, that might be an issue. But also, I don't think that the Ministry of the Interior has it on their to-do list to change the Strafgesetzbuch, the felony code in Germany. That would be extremely rare, and it wouldn't be normally within their scope of work to change that. But they would need to change that to, at least remove the so-called hacker paragraph, the 202 and following paragraphs there that make any kind of unauthenticated access to foreign systems very illegal, regardless of your intention. While in other areas of our felony code, we do have the intention of the act as a defining criterion for if it's punishable or not. For example, when it comes to normal fraud. Like a fraud is only a fraud if the person who's doing it intends to fraud someone. If it's unintentional, it's not punishable. We should do the same thing with the IT security and the 202 hacker paragraphs.
Yeah, there's some more.
So in regards to this Cyberhilfswerk, to this group of volunteers that might jump in case shit hits the fan, do you really think that this might be beneficial given the state of customization of IT software? So I know that if our systems would go down and you would send like 50 even experts in the field trying to help us out to get it back up running, given the state how custom it is to our infrastructure, explaining these 50 people what they actually need to do might not actually speed things up to get it back running, or how would the vision be for this to look like?
The assumption here is that that the critical infrastructure entities do have functioning BCM, functioning business continuity management, where all this information should be documented. If that is not the case, you're not compliant.
Yeah, well, I also think that that is a problem, and it might be tempting for some companies to say, well, I don't have to do that much for incident response calls. I will call the Cyberhilfswerk, and that can't be. That is not allowed to happen. That's really important, because where the Cyberhilfswerk might be very effective is if there's a big incident in a lot of companies, and people that are usually paid to help. So some external consultants have to come in. There might not be enough, so to help everyone. And if then there's people that might be able to help companies that are not that hard to help, so to say. That might really help in the long run.
Also, it really depends on the scenario. In large-scale scenarios, we foresee a need for very simple administrator tasks that have to do with sneakers. Sometimes hundreds of people who are able to carry a USB stick, plug it into a rack, and press a button and wait for the update is extremely useful in speeding up things to get online. And they do not need to understand how that patch works to be able to roll it out. That is one scenario. Other scenarios that we've come up with revolve around actually consumer hardware impacting our power network. If it's properly configured and synchronized, there is some potential for damage there. And there are many scenarios where external researchers can help, but I do want to underline what Martin just said. The Cyberhilfswerk can only be for scenarios where in any other scenario the military would come in and help. Like, it's not even a fire department scenario. It's like you have to have your own incident response. You have to have this all in line. You have to have your ducks in a row. But if everybody around you goes down with you, there needs to be some external fallback line that is before the military steps in, because the military is traditionally the last line of defense, and we should have something before that. So people with knowledge in the field that step in, but only in areas where the fire is really big and like the cyber fire, but covering entire cities and not individual companies.
At X41, we made the experience that it's a good idea to not contact the actual vendor with vulnerabilities which are found in the health sector, and instead go to the BSI as a man in the middle, because the German health sector at least sometimes has the mindset to sue you instead of fixing the bug. So we did so in the past and contacted, luckily, the BSI, which then explained how responsible disclosure works and that they really should fix the bugs instead of suing us.
Yeah, I can expand on this. So yeah, that's an offer that the BSI makes, that people can contact them and help. And they will we will help with responsible disclosure. Also, what we were able to do for critical infrastructures is, or there's luckily a paragraph in the law that we might force a vendor to mitigate a problem. So that's quite helpful, because sometimes I had a hospital that contacted us and said, well, there's a vendor with our router and we have a problem because the router is not able to do the filtering properly. So basically the vendor told us to if the filtering does not work, just disable it. And then everything works again, right? And yeah, that's not a good solution, obviously. And yeah, when the BSI, or when we call them and tell them, well, we don't understand this, please explain to us why that is a solution, then this usually gets resolved pretty fast. And I don't know why. I don't think that the hospital was not able to make themselves clear, but sometimes it helps to have the men in black, so to say.
So, okay. So many times you have some components which are used across different industries. And even if within the industry you have good communications, between the industries, communications are not good enough. And therefore, even if the supplier releases a fixed deployment, people aren't even aware that they need to deploy fixes. Do you have any ideas on how to make the awareness better, in the sense that you can actually know what you have and what are the issues in the first place?
Yeah, so that's probably two problems. So know what you have. You have to do that. Basically, it's not, and nobody can help you with that. You have to do it on your own. It's important. It's asset management. You have to do that. And now the communication between somebody finds a bug and it's fixed there, but probably not in the other infrastructures, or they don't know that there is a problem. We actually have something for that, and you can call us, basically, or you have to call us, basically. If you are an operator of a critical infrastructure and you find some problem within your infrastructure, then you have to tell us. And what we do is that we help you contact the vendor and so on. But we also will, most likely, will make a warning out of that and distribute that to all the other operators of critical infrastructures. So then they know. They still have to know what they're using and if that applies to them, but we can't do that for them. So that's helpful, yes.
And do you have any way to monitor the actual implementation here, in the sense that you spread out a warning? How do you know that it's being actually addressed in practice?
No, we don't have. We can probably these audits every 2 years, and probably if there's a problem still there where we send a warning out, we might contact them again. Yeah.
I'd like to react to this really quickly too. We had this debate in the political field in 2017 and 18 when it came around the renewal of the second version of the data security law, and there it was thought about let's make sure that we have some provision in the law so we can throw out Huawei components from our phone networks. And the topic was discussed to create some kind of central database where the government knows what components you have deployed and what versions of software are on there. Please not. That database shouldn't exist. The attack surface would be huge, and every cyber criminal would lick their fingers to get their hands on that database. Let's not go there. Let's rather try to increase the frequency of the audits and the complexity and requirements for the audits, but let's do not create such databases. That's not a good idea for society.
And it's outdated. And this database, even if it exists, it would be outdated the moment it's created, because so much changes all the time.
Okay, I think we have to wrap up because we are standing between critical infrastructure, mainly food, and everyone here. So thank you all. Does anyone have a last statement they definitely want to get out?
Go out and protect the critical infrastructures, please.
Yes. So thank you, and thank you for listening.